Last time I spoke to you about the importance of prioritizing your income for the purpose of building wealth. This time, I would like to talk to you about the second most important strategy, and that's reducing and eliminating your debt. There are a lot of theories out there on how to get rid of debt. And what you'll find is that it was so much easier to get into debt than it is to get out. Getting out of debt is a lot of work, but you cannot build wealth paying somebody else interest. Debt is really a wealth killer, not a wealth creator. You can never use credit to establish and build wealth. Some of the philosophies that are out there are based on two simple measurements. The first one is known as balance. And that's not a balance as in an equilibrium balance. This is balance as in the amount of debt that you're in. And one of the first strategies that some people will talk about is that you should always pay off your low balance debt first. And the concept behind paying off the low balance debt first is just simply getting quick wins. When you get a quick win, you see a debt disappear, and there's a psychological strength to that. And so the low balance debt snowball, if you'd like to call it, is just the philosophy that you start with your lowest balance first, pay that off, and then you roll that snowball, that amount of payment into the next one. The other philosophy is pay off your high balance first. And that just simply states that the reason why you want to get rid of your high balance first is because a larger balance typically means larger interest payments. And so their philosophy is just get rid of the high balance, and that'll help you move through your debt snowball. The other factor is the rate of interest you're paying. And the rate of interest you're paying, the philosophy is you pay off your high rate balances first, because a higher rate of interest means a larger payment and a quicker building up of the overall debt. So this would be the high rate philosophy. I don't think you're going to find too many people that are going to argue and say you should start paying off your low rate interest first. That really wouldn't make much sense because you have so many other things working against you with your balance and your rate. But what I'd like to suggest to you is that you take a more balanced approach between all of this. I have created this matrix which kind of blends those philosophies of low balance and high balance and the high rate of interest payoff to help organize your debt payments so that you can attack it in a more systematic way. When we talk about balance, low balance is anything less than $1,000. So your low balance will be anything less than $1,000, and your high balance obviously is anything greater than $1,000. This is the beginning of the matrix. We're looking at the balances. So you segregate out your balances, and then you're going to segregate out your rate. Here, your high rate would be anything greater than 8%, and here it would be anything less than 8% for your low balance or for your low rate. And we carry that down here. Your high rate would be greater than 8%, and your low rate would be less than 8%. Now, this is how the matrix looks, but in a practical application, what we're going to do is we're going to first of all list all of our debts. And all of those debts will be segregated at a later time. You just want to get all the debts down that you owe, all the balances, and all the interest rates. After you've achieved that, you're going to then use this matrix to organize those balances and those interest rates. You're going to start off with basically an Excel spreadsheet that's going to list the description of the debt. You're going to list the balance of the debt, and then you're going to list the rate of the debt. So basically, in a matrix, you're going to look something to this effect when you start. Then what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to record your payment. And that's your basic monthly payment that you're going to make on the debt. So let's say your description is you have a credit card debt and the balance is $1,000 and your rate of interest is 6.5% and your payment is $38 a month. This debt would fall into the low balance, low interest rate payment. Let's say the next one is you have a car payment, GMAC. Not that I'm promoting GMAC, but let's say you have a car payment. And the balance is $6,500. And the rate is 3.4%. And your payment is $465 a month. Okay? This is going to fall into the high balance, low interest rate block. And you'll list all of your debts out, and then what you're going to do is you're going to rate them exactly how the matrix says. Low balances under $1,000, high interest rate over 8. That's your first block. So that'll be your first. That'll be the first one you list, those payments. The second one is balances below $1,000, but above, or I'm sorry, the interest rate under 8%. That's your low balance, low rate, which is what the credit card falls into. The third one is balances over $1,000 and interest over 8%. And then the fourth quadrant is balances over $1,000 but interest rates under 8%. And you'll list those out in a format that will basically prioritize how you're going to attack your debt. It doesn't matter if you have a debt. For instance, if you have a debt of $650 on another debt payment and you have a debt of $900 on another payment, if this interest rate is 5% and this interest rate is 4%, you're going to want to have low balance, low interest, or high interest. So this will be your first one that you're going to attack, and this would be your second one that you're going to attack. And this process basically just lays it out and gives you the ability to pay down debt in a systemized way. What happens is when you get this $1,000 paid off, and we're just going to use these first two because I have them always spelled out. You get this first $1,000 paid off, the concept of a debt snowball, regardless of how you organize the debt, is that this $38 payment will now be applied to this $465. So the idea is that you're going to constantly be rolling, and every time you pay off a debt, you're going to continue to roll the payment into the next payment that's on your list. So how you prioritize this is according to the debt matrix. But what happens is you start actually making these payments, and they start rolling into one another, and you start to pick up momentum, and you're going to start paying down your debt. Now, one of the examples that I'm going to show on the screen, I'll kind of talk through it, is the debt snowball. That is exactly what we're talking about, but I have it more spelled out in the sense of actual debts put in here and kind of showed what's going on. And each one is listed according to the debt matrix. And the idea is real simple. As you pay off your top line debt, which in this case is, let's see, we got a new laptop. We owe $701 on it, we're paying $110 on it, and it's at 8% interest. That is a low debt or low balance, high rate payment. When we pay that off, and by the looks of that, it would be paid off in about 7 months. When you pay that off, you take that $110 that you were applying to the beginning, or to that debt, and then you roll it into the next debt. And our next debt is listed as Len the plumber came out and did some plumbing work, and we decided to put it on credit. Because we didn't have an emergency fund, obviously, which is one of the priorities. But that was $262, and we're paying $50 a month. And actually, Len the plumber was very nice. He gave us 0% interest. So that's a great interest rate, but we still have a debt. So you've paid off your new laptop in about 7 months. You have a $262 payment for Len the plumber, that's 2 months, because you're going to roll that $110 into the $50, and within 2 months, Lynn the plumber's gone. You've now eliminated 2 of your debts, and you've freed up somewhere in the range of $160 that can now be applied to the very next debt on the list. And you keep going down like that. At some point, you're going to start noticing that you're paying, you're accelerating the debt payment, which is really the concept of getting rid of debt. You cannot continue to pay minimum payments and expect to get out of debt. These things are set up to keep you in debt for a long time. The philosophy is very simple. It's roll into the next one, roll into the next one, roll into the next one. The idea is to accelerate the payments because you can't build wealth when you're paying somebody else interest. And the use of credit is never a tool for building wealth. There's not a lot of people who have wealth that go around saying the way I got my wealth was I went into debt to do it. And this is the philosophy behind the debt snowball. Now, in the event that I should say this, you need to continue to make the minimum payments on every other debt except the one that you're accelerating. The debt that you're accelerating, you're going to keep rolling the previous payments into as we move down the list. But you have to keep making the minimum payments on everything else. In the event that you do not have enough income, or at least enough spendable income, to make the minimum payments, you have to switch to a different strategy. And that strategy is known as the pro rata debt strategy. And the pro rata debt strategy is a very basic strategy that says a particular debt line is what percentage of the overall available money I have to pay towards debt. So in this case, we got some very complicated numbers here, but let me give you a really quick example. If I have a total debt of $1,000 and my first debt that I owe is $100, that's 10%. Now, if I don't have enough to make the minimum payments on every one of my debt, I have to then put it into this pro rata form, which automatically calculates the percentage of each individual debt against the total amount of debt I owe. And it's very simple that then I take the total amount that I have available to apply to these debts, and I take that 10% and I say 10% of, let's say I only have $500 available for debt payments, and that's not a total of, that doesn't meet all of the minimum payments, then that 10% would be $50. So the amount that goes towards that $1,000 debt, or that $100 debt, would be $50. Now that's kind of a very round number and figure, but when you start looking at some of these on the example that I'm going to show on the screen, I'll just talk you through it. Well, we got a television, and that television we're going to say is the $700, and that $700 is 0.6% of the overall available cash I have available for paying down debt. In this example, the total debt is $107,000, and I have about $1,855. I think it's $55, $35, $1,835 in order to apply. So the pro rata debt form will look at that $701 and say it's about 0.6 or 6.5, 6.65%. And so it's going to say, well, your minimum payment that you can make based on this form is about $11 a month. Now that may or may not be equal to the actual payment. In our case, it wasn't, because if you remember the other form, we were paying $110 towards that electronics. So in this case, there's two parts to this. The first one is figuring out what percentage of each individual debt is, what percentage of that debt is the overall debt, and then how much do I have to apply to my debt payments to pay it off, and then that calculates across. But the other part is you have to negotiate with those people who have extended you credit, because part of the plan of the pro rata is you have to kind of work it in tandem. You have to let the crediting organization know that you're not going to be able to make the full payment, but you are able to send a payment. And then maybe you can negotiate with them and say, is there a way I can get some of that debt forgiven? or maybe I can reduce the interest rate or eliminate the interest rate altogether. Most organizations that extend credit are interested in getting paid back. And so as long as you're making a good faith effort with the pro rata to pay a portion of the debt and ask them if they could forgive part of the debt or eliminate the interest rate, it's going to help you. But you have to do that in tandem. You can't just do a pro rata and not inform them that you're not going to do it. Obviously, if you get the interest rate down to zero, doing the pro rata is very advantageous because your full payment goes to the principal and there's no interest that's building up. So you're not kind of shooting yourself in the foot. You pay $11 and there's $12 worth of interest each month. So the idea is you want to try to talk to everybody who has extended you credit and find out if there is a way to reduce the interest to zero and therefore actually increasing the amount of your payment that's actually going towards the debt itself. So this is a strategy that I think everybody who is in debt needs to look at. You can definitely do the regular debt snowball, which is, like I say, you organize it by the debt matrix. As you take that debt matrix and you plug in your numbers, you're going to get yourself a nice form. In Excel, you can build this very easily. You can go to my website and fill out my website is kenrupert.com. Go to the contact page, fill out that and say, hey, I'd like to get a copy of that debt snowball form in Excel, and leave your email address and I can send it out to you. But the key is that you have to have a strategy for this. You just can't go make minimum payments and decide one month I don't have enough money, I'm just not going to make a payment. That's not going to help you. The idea is to organize your income with that income prioritization I talked about that gives you the structure that's going to control your spending. And then the second strategy is to follow it up with a debt payment strategy to eliminate your debt to the extent where it's either A, somewhat manageable, you got to get it into a manageable level, or B, you eliminate it altogether. I would never recommend trying to build wealth while you have a debt load. Debt, like I say, it's a wealth killer. It'll rob you of every opportunity you have to build wealth. Because when you have debt, you've committed future earnings towards an artificial inflation of your paycheck through the use of credit. So it's very important that you work these two strategies. You set up that priority, you get right into the debt elimination, and that'll be a very powerful tool that'll help you start building wealth. The next session I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be talking about how to measure all of this, how to build the spreadsheets in Excel. So you don't necessarily have to know Excel to the extent of being an expert in it, but I can give you some formats and some formulas that will help you, generally speaking, measure your progress. And I think when you measure progress, you'll start to see how you're going to be able to get to the point where you're going to be able to build wealth, which is the key of this whole series about Let's Talk About Money. So with that, take the time to click on the link below. The link below will have you subscribe to the YouTube channel, and you'll be able to get even more information through these vodcasts. You can also click on the links above to like the social media page of the Community Media Center. Thank you for joining me, and I look forward to not only continuing to teach about how to build wealth and how to build strategies that will move you in that direction, but also look forward to hearing from you by just going to kenrupert.com, clicking on the contact page, send me your information, let's talk, and let's really start to work together to build wealth.